Hi everyone, my name is Shauna in case you don't know, and welcome back to another video. I always like to do a video where I recap my favorite movies and books of 2024, and today is going to be the movies portion. So today I will be talking about my favorite movies from 2024. Now these rank anywhere from about 4.5 stars to 5 stars on Letterboxd if you're using the Letterboxd ranking system. So there was only 5 movies that hit this criteria for me this year, and the reason there was only 5 is because, quite frankly, I have to take Spanish for my degree and I have to take 7 terms of it. I've taken 4 terms so far as of filming this video, but by the time this video is up, I will be in the middle of my 5th term. Spanish takes up so much time, especially because the textbook and the professors at my school aren't necessarily the greatest, I'd say. I'll just leave it at that. I think the professors have good intentions, I just think there needs to be more. But also at the same time, there's so much work already. So I'm having to do like schoolwork on top of teaching myself different concepts that aren't taught very well using the textbook. So it's been a lot of work, so it's hard to sit down and watch a movie with how much schoolwork I have. So I've been watching a lot more shows instead of movies, and it's gonna be that way through 2025, and yeah, just through 2025. Oh my god, I'm gonna finish Spanish this year. I'm so excited. I just want the end of this year to come so that I can be done with Spanish because I want to go back to taking English and writing classes, my degree, you know? Not that I think Spanish is a waste of time, I just think I need a different professor and a different structured environment to learn super effectively with Spanish. So anyways, enough about Spanish. So there's only 5 movies to talk about, and I don't include rewatches in my favorites list, so these are going to be ones that I watched for the very first time in 2024. So I'm going to go in the order of when I watched the movies. So I watched a lot of Studio Ghibli films in 2024. I think I literally started off the year by binging a bunch of Studio Ghibli films. And I'm finding that Studio Ghibli films aren't normally for me, but there is 2 that made it onto my list this year. And this first one made it onto my list, and I don't think this one will come as a surprise to too many people because I've talked about how much I love the main character, or one of the main characters in this film. And also this is a fan favorite for Studio Ghibli fans, and this one is Howl's Moving Castle. In Howl's Moving Castle, there's a girl named Sophie, and Sophie has been cursed to look like an old lady, and she ends up having to go and find Howl and see if he can help her look young again. And the unique feature about this film is the romance, but it's also the fantasy elements. Howl's Moving Castle is literally this giant castle that's super creative and really well written, and it's just traveling throughout the lands and can never stay stationary for too long. There's other fantasy elements that are done wonderfully in here. The main appeal for me about this film is Howl. I think he is a wonderfully written character, and I think he's so captivating, and I'm so excited that I'm gonna be cosplaying him later this year because I have a friend who wants to do Sophie and I'm gonna do Howl with them, and I think that's gonna be super fun and cute. So Howl's Moving Castle made it on the list. Howl's Moving Castle is my favorite Studio Ghibli film out of all of them that I watched. I think I've watched like over 10 so far. The next one on the list is one that's gonna surprise people, and it's gonna surprise people because it's gonna be surprising that this is the first time that I watched this film, and this film is Breaking Dawn Part 1. Now don't hate me, okay? So I watched the first 2 films in 2020. I finished the book series like a couple years ago, and I just like never finished the film series. But then Ashley Greene was invited to a con, and I was like, Alice is literally one of my favorite fictional characters of all time. I'm gonna finish these movies. And surprisingly, Eclipse and Breaking Dawn Part 2 didn't actually make it onto the list. And I know that's a super unpopular opinion because I know Breaking Dawn Part 2 is a lot of people's favorite, but it isn't my favorite in the series, in part because of that CGI. That really was something. But Breaking Dawn Part 1 has that energy of the first 2 Twilight films that I absolutely love. It was bad, but bad to the point where it was funny, and that's what I love about it. But there's also epic and intense moments. And I think Breaking Dawn Part 1 explores some really cool territory with how the vampires work. And so I really love that about Breaking Dawn Part 1. I would say that the order of my favorite to least favorite from the Twilight films goes Twilight, New Moon, Breaking Dawn Part 1, Breaking Dawn Part 2, and then Eclipse, I think. I could be switching Eclipse and Breaking Dawn Part 2, but that's a general rough ranking of my thoughts on the films. The third movie that made it on the list is one that I didn't actually watch until like October, so for most of the year I only had 2 movies on my favorite movies of 2024 list. But then in October, I got another one on my list, and you've heard me talk about this one before if you've been up to date with all my YouTube videos, and that is The Secret World of Arrietty. So The Secret World of Arrietty is another Studio Ghibli film. This is the second one that made it on my favorites list. There's been a lot of adaptations of the original book, which is The Borrowers. So like Tom Felton was in a version, and this one is the Studio Ghibli animated version. I really love this one. I think it's so cute and adorable. So it follows a bunch of people who are borrowers, and the borrowers are little humans, and they live inside this little human's house, and they go and they have to borrow everything from the humans in the house that they live in. It's such an adorable and cute concept, and the movie was so wonderfully well done. I think it's great for kids and adults alike, and it's easily such a comfort film for me. The fourth movie on this list is a drastic change from The Secret World of Arrietty, because it is Samaritan. So Samaritan is a very gritty and graphic superhero movie, and it follows this boy who believes that the superhero is still alive. So basically, in the past, as soon as you watch the movie, you get introduced to the idea of the film, which is that there was a superhero and a villain who were brothers. But the superhero killed the villain, and then he disappeared. But this boy believes that the superhero is still there, and he starts to uncover evidence that someone that lives near where he is Samaritan, the superhero. I thought this movie was really cleverly done. I think there's some really great action sequences in there that are super creative, but the thing I love most about this film is the bond between the boy and the film and Samaritan. I think that bond was so wonderfully well done. I think it was really fun to watch play out, and it is honestly my favorite part of this film. There is also incredible performances in this film, and Samaritan is easily making it onto my favorites list for 2024. The final movie that is on this list is one that my friend introduced me to, and it is a horror movie. It's called Hush. And so Hush is a horror movie that follows this gal who is deaf, and she is living alone when basically a serial killer comes, and it becomes a fight for survival for her. She has no auditory cues to figure out where he is and what he's planning, so she has to rely on her other senses, and it's a really cool fight for survival story that I really enjoyed watching play out on the screen. There is some like very graphic stuff that happens in there, but it's still such a great film. I love fight for survival films, and this one is easily one of my favorite ones that I've ever seen. So those were the 5 movies that made it onto my favorite movies of 2024 list. I hope all of you enjoyed watching this video. If you did, feel free to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to me if you haven't already. My favorite books of 2024 video will be coming out next week, so stay tuned for that. I have some exciting books to talk about. Honestly, it's weird. My favorite movies and my favorite books of 2024 were sort of in a similar like layout of how they progressed throughout the year. So I got 2 really early on that became favorites. But then there was like 9 months with no more favorites, and just the films that I did watch, I was like, this is bland. So yeah, it progressed in the same way where it was like the end of the year I got some favorites, beginning of the year, middle of the year, no favorites. So stay tuned for next week to hear about all of my favorite books of 2024. I hope all of you are having a great start to your new year, and until next time, goodbye everyone.